the I'm gonna start the webinar now because it's 8:01. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our NYU Alumni event. Another one. Really quickly, since the last one, today we're going to be talking about building resilience in your career and your businesses during COVID-19, during this pandemic, or are currently working almost the whole year of Daniel Budman and Bu Heni Purnawati right now here with us. I guess we can start by the introduction of Bu Heni first. Hello,
Oh,
Bu
why
Heni, if you
me?
can share a little bit
Should be
of
Papa Hala.
We're still waiting on Papa Hala, but if you can start first,
Oh,
then
okay.
Papa Hala is actually in the attendee. Yeah, he's in the attendee room.
Oh, okay.
So can you upgrade him to ini Audrey? He's in the attendee room.
Yes. Yes, I have added Papa Hala. Should be joining with us soon.
Oh,
yes, he's here with us. Hello, Papa Hala. Your video is still off.
Papa Hala.
Hello. Let me hold on a sec. Hello.
So we're starting.
How are you, Adria?
I am good, Pa. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you.
There's been...
Do you want to share a brief introduction about yourself?
Do I want to introduce myself? Of course. Stern, graduated 99. I am now the CEO of Bank Tabungan Negara, which is the 5th bank in Indonesia and also happens to be the largest bank in Indonesia in terms of mortgage being extended. I've been in this position for about 10 months right now. Before that, I was actually the CFO of Pertamina, which is the Indonesian oil and gas company. Before that was the CEO of Garuda Indonesia, which is the flagship carrier of Indonesia. And then before that, for about 15 years, I worked in Bank Mandiri in various positions. So there you go. Very excited to be here tonight. I'm not sure if I can share a lot of nuggets compared to Mr. Budiman and also Ms. Purnawati, yeah? Who of course are actually the experts in career. Because I followed with her in numerous times, yeah.
It's an honor, Papa Hala.
Papa Hala, you're looking younger than ever.
Oh yeah, it's the right kind of lighting, I guess, Daniel. You should get this lighting too if you want to look younger.
Okay, then we can move on to Bu Heni. Bu Heni, if you can kindly introduce yourself.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for having me in this session. I'm really honored. So I should say that, you know, I am a friend of Pak Pahala and Pak Daniel, right? Because I'm not a Stern graduate or in any way connected to NYU. But nevertheless, you know, I'm very, very honored to be part of this as a guest and as a friend, right? And I'm by no means an expert here, especially when you talk about what is the impact of pandemic and how that this affect our business and how we do business and all that. But I think this is, perhaps I can say on behalf of everybody else, this is unprecedented. And this is definitely the toughest and the most challenging year of my career, right? So, and I am a partner in Egon Zehnder. Egon Zehnder is, global talent advisory firm, right? We're based in Switzerland. We have been in Indonesia for close to 25 years, right? So I started in 1998 in the middle of Asian financial crisis. I thought it was challenging, yeah, but nothing compared to this. So I think in this session, I think it's great that we all share our stories. I think it's great to have us supporting each other, right? We are professional business owners, people who started career or you are in school and all that. And I think it is a great forum to share best practices.
Thank you, Wu Henny, for the kind introduction. Yes, and we will definitely go over everything in more details. But before anything else, let us introduce you, or let you introduce yourself, Daniel, please, if you can kindly.
Thank you, Audria. And again, I'm honored to be here with my good friend and idol, actually, Pak Pahala, and also Ibu Henny, which I actually have known for, sorry, Hen, I have to age you, but for
that
40 years.
Reveal our ages.
Yes. So I'm a proud parent. I guess my son is just starting at Stern this semester online, unfortunately. But again, so I'm a co-founder and managing partner of Mahanusa Capital, and we are an investment company with operations in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And we focus on consumer goods, property, mining, nickel mining, and also fund management. We also dabble in technology like everybody else. So, I guess before that, I was an investment banker, and before that, again, with Procter & Gamble. So I think this is more a session for me to share, I guess, what as I guess as an entrepreneur, what I've been through the last 6-7 months. So I think nobody can teach anyone at this point what about this pandemic. I think we can share and what has happened to us and also how we deal with it. So looking forward.
Thank you, Pak Daniel, for the kind introduction. So without further ado, we're gonna start with the presentation that has been kindly prepared by Bu Henny Purnawati. But feel free to drop your questions in the question box for anybody who kind of want to ask question in the middle. We're gonna make this event a bit more interactive. So if you have any questions, you can just drop it and I will kindly guide you to have the answer. So I'm gonna share my screen and we're gonna start the presentation.
Again, this is not a presentation, right? So I think this is a free flow discussion. When Daniel and Pahala can jump in and talk about this, and then we will cover. I think Pahala. I think the difficulty being the leader in financial services, what you have to do for your customer, and how do you respond to the government and all that. And Daniel, you talk about just now the effect of this pandemic, not only physically, but also mental health of our people surrounding us, right? So if you can flip the page to the next page, Audrey. Next one.
Yes.
Next one. Right. So, and as you know, right, and it is clear, there will be winners and losers and a lot of uncertainty. We are not even seeing, the end of the tunnel, or really the true effect of this pandemic can bring to our business and our life, right? We are probably, masih babak I'm trying to use a sport analogy here. Maybe we are still in a ronde, kedua out of 10 maybe, because there's a lot of uncertainty, in the horizon, right? Now, winners and losers are, you know this, right? And but with the China experience, because China is the first country, that gone through the worst and then now rebuilding their economy, is that, I think from our perspective, from my perspective being in a business, is that good talent are always in demand, right? So, for those participating in this event, you are in school or you are in a workplace, do not worry, right? Because good talent are always in demand. Yeah, and secondly, and I think this is also represent a great opportunity. Think about how the work get done today. Yeah, and think about the amount of cost saving that we have by reducing travel all the time, right? So I think there are a lot of uncertainty, negative thing, but also opportunity in the future, right? But as as a talent, this is also an opportunity for us. I think the silver lining of all crisis that we experience is that I think the key to survive is I think the three things. Yeah, being able to be adaptable, right? Being able to be flexible, resilience, and also show empathy, and also being true to ourselves. Authenticity is very important for us. Next page, Audrey. Yeah. So this is, what leaders, leaders have to grapple with, right? It is a very broad problem, to the level of how do you get our staff, our subordinate, to get back into workplace, yeah, and how we can restructure our work and all that, to the finding of the business model, right? And it also talking about the deep problem and the different level of abstraction, right? From the logistic of getting people the mask, and then changing company policy, the office layout, and things like that, and talk about not even talking about the strategic change of the business, right? So it is very, very challenging for us as leaders. Next page. Now, next page.
Yes, it's page 5 now.
Yeah, okay. So the second one is that, as a leader, we have to, deal with the issue of risk, yeah? And that entails liability for customers and employees, right? You have heard about, employee of an insurance company or a bank, got infected and all that. How does we as leaders actually deal with this kind of situation, right? And also what kind of the reputation of a company as a whole, right? And whether you are deciding to let go of people, and how do you let go, you grant holiday in terms of mortgage payment and things like that. Yeah. The third, next page, please. Now, when you talk about leadership, right? Outstanding leadership has never been more important today. Now, if you think about it, even before COVID, yeah, we already face a very huge transformation, uncertainty about what is leadership. I grew up in the time of Jack Welch. So before joining Egon Zehnder, I was with General Electric. Yeah, I'm very proud the fact that I work for Jack Welch. Yeah, so during Jack Welch time, leadership was, perhaps relatively easy because it is a very top-down leadership where Jack Welch said this, everybody will follow. Right? He provided that direction. But today, with the advancement of technology, disruption, and everything, I think the role of leader has changed so much, right? And I think it can be distilled into three things, yeah? And I describe it as paradoxes. Yeah, one is paradoxes of collaboration. Yeah. So in this day and age, leaders may not have all the answer, or nor we pretend to have all the answers. We are not God, right? Leaders are not God. So how do you actually encourage the organization to be able to actually come up with the ideas from bottom up? Yeah. And then also leaders will provide some sort of direction. This is is a paradox. Yeah, you allow the generation of ideas from the bottom, but you also providing the framework of that discussion. Yeah, so that is number one, paradox of decision making. The second one is paradox of collaboration. Yeah. You want your organization, people in your organization to debate ideas, to argue, contradict each other, right? But you also want to actually be able to make decision for them. Because if people argue all the time, you can't make decision, right? So the second one is really paradox of collaboration. The third one, I think equally importantly, is what we call the paradox of discovery-driven learning. Yeah. So then in P&G before, right? Remember the process of new product introduction can take up to 2 years. Yeah, to be able to change the flavor of your cough drop or the fragrance of your shampoo. It will take a long time. Right? Today, you do not have 2 years. I think the process of innovation is about you go, try, you fail, you go back to the drawing board, and then you try again. And the process is very iterative and very, very fast. Yeah. So this is what we call the paradox of this discovery and learning in your organization. Yeah. So it is even before COVID, this is already coming. Yeah. Especially during this COVID, I think it becomes much more important. Yeah. So next page, Audrey. Yeah. So, again, resilience is very key, and leaders must be able to take care of themselves physically and emotionally. Yeah. And stay connected in the social support. And I think this is a great support system, right? NYU, great university, great friends, great community. I think we have to preserve this kind of social support, right? And also transition to new reality with pace and reset those expectations. Next one. Yeah. So again, setting the parameters, when you go back to the workplace, and I think Pahala and Daniel can share more about what they do in their companies, and what works, what don't, and what doesn't, and things like that. So I think this is the gist of what I'd like to share. So and I'd like to give the time to Daniel and Pahala to continue or to get on another subject.
Silakan Pak Pahala.
Oh, so yeah, I don't even, thank you very much, Audria. Hani, such a very good presentation. I think from my point of view is that every time that there is actually such a big and massive, I think Hani actually mentioned just now about the fact that the pandemic is such a big shift in everything that we're doing, right? Whether it is actually in our work, the economics, how people actually use technology, and even how people actually work, and the behavior that we actually are working is actually, we are experiencing such a massive change in our life right now. And I think I want to actually reflect just a little bit about how I started my career. I was actually in business school between 97 and 99. And in 98, and I still remember 2 weeks after I left Jakarta at that time, Asia went through what we call the Asian financial crisis at that time. And I always thought that that is probably the worst that Asia can undergo in terms of the massive transformation. I mean, in Indonesia, for example, at that time, it's not only a massive transition in terms of economy, GDP growth contracted by about 16%. 16%. And I think if we want to talk about unprecedented, there is the most unprecedented contraction in the economy. I think also politically, Suharto at that time in Indonesia has been in command for about 30 years. Social economic changes actually is massive in Indonesia. Now, however, I think, and maybe for Daniel too at that time, at the same time that there is actually a massive change in the economy, the massive change in the political situation, when some doors were actually closed, new doors are probably being opened also at the same time. So for me at that time to witness such a massive change in Indonesia economy, political situation, and social economic situation, but also at the same time, Indonesia was undergoing a lot of transformation. And for somebody like me who at that time was actually went to school in the US, at the time, I thought that, wow, there couldn't be a lot of opportunity in consulting or in banking or in asset management or things like that. But I think the opposite actually happened. Because in 1999, when I just finished my business school at that time, there's a lot of consulting companies are actually recruiting for Asian who want to actually come back to Asia, because there's just a lot of transformation that needs to be done in banking system, in Indonesian conglomerates, and so on and so forth. And probably the same thing that Daniel is probably making a jackpot during just after the Asian financial crisis also at the time. So I think, and that is actually the point of time where actually I started my whole career, whereby I started as a consultant. I worked my first my first clients at that time were state-owned banks, and basically from that point on, I was recruited to become state-owned bankers. I joined Bank Mandiri in 2003 after I have actually been working for BCG at the time, and most of the time I spent with BCG was doing some transformation work in Bank Mandiri, and they believe that it's probably cheaper to recruit me rather than continuing to pay the consulting firm at that time to continue the transformation that needs to be done in Bank Mandiri. And also at the same time, another transformation actually happens in Bank Mandiri, whereby in 2005 until 2010, the first transformation actually happened in Bank Mandiri, and therefore I was being part of this whole transformation to try to change Bank Mandiri in the various areas of the business, including risk management, building the new culture, and so on and so forth. And I think we are seeing Bank Mandiri as it is right now because of the transformation that was actually being done during that 5 years. So I think what I'm actually trying to say is that whenever there is actually a big shift, also at the same time, we see a lot of opportunity. We see, and I think we need to be very, very mindful about what does it mean. And I think we need to see the shift and try to actually look at what does the shift mean to my career, right? And try to actually reinvent ourselves also at the same time. You know, if I continue to work as a consultant at that time, whereby in 2005, there is a lot of transformation that is actually being done by the government to try to actually recruit new talents, to transform some of the SOEs in Indonesia, the state-owned companies in Indonesia. I think I wouldn't be at this position right now. I am actually at this position right now, and I think at that time I was actually made one of the youngest board member in any of the major SOEs in Indonesia, because I took the opportunity to be able to see this change, this transformation that is actually happening in Indonesian SOEs. And therefore, I took the opportunity to join the bank at that time, because I see that there is this shift that is actually happening. So I think we shouldn't see this. Of course, right now the pandemic is actually very, very difficult for most of us. But I think in most of this transformation, in most of this shift, there is a lot of shift that we need to actually be very mindful, and then try to actually continue to try to transform ourselves and to try to actually look at, okay, not to be too comfortable also at the same time with our career. You know, so as an example, also in 2017, after I've actually been in Bank Mandiri for about close to about 15 years at that time, 14 to 15 years, I decided to actually join Garuda Indonesia, which is actually the flagship carrier, also the flagship carrier of Indonesia. And I think at that time, I looked at the opportunity to try to, again, see how else am I going to be able to transform myself. It's a good thing that I'm not in airline industry anymore right now, because as we can see, airline industry is in such a bad shape right now. But I think I've learned a lot from you know, being a CEO in Garuda. I learned a lot, not only about finance, I learned a lot about operations, managing people. They had about 9,000 people. They had a very difficult union at that time. So I think, yeah, that is actually the second takeaways that I can actually share with you guys is to try to actually continue to transform ourselves and transform our career and see what else are we going to be able to do by learning new things. So I think I'll stop there and maybe give the opportunity for Daniel to share his thoughts.
Thank you, Pak Pahala. And thank you, Henny. I think Pak Pahala is absolutely correct. I mean, as someone who absolutely went through the Asian crisis in 96, 97, I just also finished my business school at that time. I finished in 95. And so it's like the Hindu trilogy, right? It's there's Shiva and there's Brahma and there's Vishnu, which is Shiva is the god of destruction, and then followed by Brahma, which is god of creation. So, out of the ashes, you have new wonderful things appear, and then Vishnu is the god of preservation. So we are in that, one of those times again. Although I personally think that 97, 98 is actually tougher for Indonesia. At that time, our economy, if you remember, Pak Pahala, actually contracted 13% in 98, yeah? So right now, I think Ibu Sri is saying that worst case scenario is, I think, -3, is it? So, economically, that times to me was far worse. But anyway, I think we know that this pandemic is not only a health crisis, but it's also an economic crisis and a mental crisis, mental health crisis. So I just want to share two things. One is my experience as a business owner, and then two, I guess, how to deal with it on a personal level. So when this thing hit in March, I was lucky to be able to actually listen. This was I think in early April. I was invited to a webinar with Alan Job, which is the CEO of Unilever. Okay, this guy is a Scottish guy. He sits in London, and he said, "Okay, this is time to go back to basic." So he said, we only focus on 4 things. One is people, people, number 1, always people. Number 2 is cash, because cash is the blood of a company, and without cash, a company would not survive. Third is the supply chain, meaning, and this is, I guess, mostly manufacturing, but also I think in other businesses, service businesses, you have this. And then fourth, the consumer. And so immediately for all of our companies, we use this. So we immediately, at that time, because I think it was hard to meet in the office, we were meeting again through Zoom, I guess we started. And all of our companies, we met once a week, sometimes twice or 3 times a week. And we always start by that, people. Okay, how's our people? Anyone got impacted? Who's anyone sick? So what are we doing? And if you guys remember, in April, we know very little, right? So we just started by, okay, just make sure, we have hand sanitizer, that we have masks, and, we give everyone, vitamin C. I mean, simple stuff like that. And every week we escalate, right? It's like, oh, okay, let's change the seating arrangement. Oh, then we become 50-50. So people always first. And why I agree people first is because one is that whatever your business is, if your people is sick or they're not available, then there's no business, right? Especially even more financial service, the service business, but even manufacturing. Second is by putting people first. In this time of crisis, your people will feel, oh, okay, I'm actually first. I'm a priority of my boss. I'm a priority of my business owner. So, which again gives people a feeling of a better feeling in time of difficulty, and some comfort, and also loyalty, hopefully. So, and then cash. So one of our assets is we are a significant minority shareholding at Pacific Place, and we can see, oh man, this is gonna be an asset which is gonna be hit the most. One, same as Pak Pahala was saying. Again, Pak Pahala, I'm glad you're not at Garuda. But Pacific Place, you guys can imagine, it's retail, it's hotel, it's a convention center, it's event. So everything just disappeared immediately, right? The good thing is we don't have any debt, but we know that this is, but we don't know, but we're just being very risk averse. So we said, okay, let's get a working capital line. So in April, we started on a working capital line for Pacific Place, and it took us 2 months, but we were able to get it. And knock on wood, I think, even if things are not, we're probably we can last until mid 2022 or even end of 2022, which I don't think is going to be that long, this crisis. But that's making sure that, and also all our other companies, even though they don't need it, we drew working capital loan, because again, that's what Mr. Job from Unilever, and also some people that some wise people that are here, just so we pull all of our working capital line just to make sure that we have liquidity. And it turns out that a lot of those in our other businesses, we don't need it, and we in fact we return it over a period of year, and we had a period of months, and we had to pay interest rate. But that's risk management, just making sure you're in a storm, your window is tightly shut, and you have food and enough to last you for a while, right? And then third, of course, supply, meaning that if we have to make things, or that supply is not disrupted. And fortunately, it was disrupted, I think, for a month, but then because, for example, our candy factory, we import a few things, and a few things from China, which was totally closed, but our people were fast enough that they were able to get substitution from other markets. So that was, so we were, I was lucky. We had people who are strong and who are not, who were still thinking straight and still finding things, creative things to do during a very scary time. And we all remember that time, March, April, May are very scary things, because we really don't know what this thing is. We know people who died, and so so all those things. So the other things I want to share is that now 6-7 months after this, we have to remember that it's also about mental health crisis. All of us are impacted, not only our employees, all of us. I mean, I certainly have a lot of anxiety and some sleepless nights, and fear. And I think in the first 3, 4, 5 months, I probably forgot to be as a leader to be compassionate. I was really in a directing mode. You do this, you know, are we okay? You know, but now, you know, I'm trying to be more compassionate because, you know, people, their parents, their kids are all in state of anxiety, you know, not being able to meet their friends, not being able to go out, losing jobs, you know, the businesses are earning less, and, you know, a lot of anxiety, fear. So I think as a leader, as a business person, even as a child, as a parent, you know, we have to show a lot of compassion to ourselves also, but also to other people. To ourselves by, you know, doing some sports and just having some downtime, meditating, whatever. I mean, I think to survive as an effective leader or business person or whatever it is, or student, we first have to be healthy and to have good stamina, right? So I think I stop there.
Thank you, Pak Daniel and Pak Pahala and Bu Henny for the kind presentation. Should we go through the presentation again? Just to kindly finish it off?
Okay, we can opening
Okay.
up for question, and please feel free to distribute the presentation to the audience, Audrey.
For sure. So we will be we will be saving this presentation. So if anyone you would like to have the presentation, you can contact me, and you can contact Nelson, who's also one of our officer in NYU. So then we can start balling by having some discussion. So there are some key points that before this event we have wrote down. And one of them that's, I think it's very valid for the situation right now is if you can help us and give us advice on how to network right now during the pandemic and how to pivot in our career.
You know, one, you know, in my experience, yeah, and then this is completely new to us, and we are pleasantly surprised. You know, globally, you know, during this 6 months, we as Egon Zender, right, we place 500 leaders, yeah, senior people virtually, right? So we have never thought that this could be done, the recruitment of top management just by doing Zoom, right? But, you know, we are very surprised that we can do 500. Yeah, and I think this is the power of connectivity. And during this time, amazingly, you know, we can reach out to anybody. We can talk to anyone from anywhere. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that people would have time for you. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know who you want to connect with and all that, but be bold, be brave, be ambitious, right? So if you want to talk to one of your star professor, you know, I would love to talk to Nuriel Rubini, for example, because he's in Stern, right? You know, I think who knows, you know? So connectivity becomes the power, right? And you don't have to go to New York, you don't have to go to San Francisco to connect, yeah? So I think, you know, just be creative, be brave, and be resourceful.
Yeah, so we have a question from Mr. Ahmad. What are the most important things to survive in this very challenging and difficult situation for career and for our businesses?
I can try. Well, I think Daniel has just mentioned just now about the importance of, I think for me, being a leader, you have to make sure that people are feeling safe because in a lot of times of uncertainty, it is very important that the leaders are providing the sense of certainty when there is a lot of feeling of uncertainty. So I think the most important thing, we need to be at present as the leaders. We need to be able to communicate to them, even though that sometimes we are not sure about what is actually expected to actually happen. We need to be able to provide some assurance to them. We need to communicate. We need to be at present with them. I think that's number one. Number two, I guess, even though that we are not sure, and this is actually, for most of the people, this is actually the experience of the first time that they experience something like this, to try to actually forecast, and look what is actually going to happen and what is actually going to be the impact on our business, on our business process, on the way that we need to actually interact, including for myself, for example, we need to actually look at what is actually, we are stress testing all the time, what is actually going to be the expected impact on our portfolio, for example, and try to actually develop some action plans on how are we going to be able to minimize the impact of the pandemic on the loans portfolio that we have. And also, I think on most of the time to see what will also need to be done organizationally, because we all know that, for example, during this kind of pandemic, there's going to be a lot of customers that needs to be restructured. So in our case, for example, we formed a very separate team that the focus is just how they are going to be able to restructure the loans. And it happens to be a very, very the right thing to do, because the existing organization will not be able to cope with all of the restructuring portfolio that needs to actually be done. And I think the third, of course, everybody agrees that, I guess, when people actually are being asked what is the biggest thing that has allowed them to transform the organization to become a very savvy technologically very savvy organization, it is not about a visionary, chief information officer. It's not about a very visionary CEO, but it's all about responding to COVID, right? I think we see many organizations becoming very technology savvy because they don't have any other option but to be able to adjust how they're going to be able to work during the pandemic. So I think being able to see how technology is becoming the answer for most of the things, like for example, for myself, we are now selling mortgages through online channels. We are conducting housing expo, mortgage expo using the online technology so that people can actually experience whatever they experience as if they are actually in a housing exhibition, for example. People can apply for the loans using technology. People can verify people's incomes through technology. People can actually work outside of their homes because they are actually able to do whatever that they need to do in the office at home right now. So being able to do that is actually very, very important. And I think also for people to see how, and I think the behavior will not change after the pandemic is actually behind us. People will continue to become very dependent on technology, very dependent on online, because now they feel the convenience of actually being able to do so. And I think the role of the branches, the role of the ATMs is actually going to decline going forward. So that is actually just some of the examples that how we think about our business even post the pandemic. If we think it will return to whatever it is just before the pandemic, I think may not actually be true. The way that we do business will continue to be totally changed. And, you know, particularly for the property sector, unfortunately, Daniel, you know, retail, malls, and all that, I think will totally change as well going forward. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Thank you, Papa Hala, for answering the question. We also have another question from James Fan. Hi, James. He's actually one of our event officer in Singapore for NYU Singapore. So his question is potentially more geared towards Buheni, but also it'll be great if all of the panelists could answer. So James runs a small agriculture business in Singapore that is looking to relocate staff to Indonesia when it becomes feasible again. He's curious on how firms in Indonesia have been navigating the recruitment of foreign talent during COVID. There's actually a new law for this.
No, it is, James, I think, thank you for the question. What we find is actually amazing, right? Because of the technology, you know, allow us to actually reach talent across border, right? So, you know, and we have been able to talk to people from Amazon, from eBay, from PayPal, from Credit Karma, to actually consider a position in Indonesia, right? Because if you think about it, you know, we are, you know, very fortunate because we have the, in ASEAN, we are the largest market, you know, young population, and all that, right? So we are a very attractive market, right? So in this pandemic, I think the norm of working, the idea of you can actually work from anywhere is actually being more and more a norm, right? Like Pahala said, this is something perhaps this is not coming back to the pre-COVID time. Yeah, so I think, you know, the availability of talent pool become much bigger because of this border restriction anymore. And this is particularly true, James, when you know talk about the talent in technology, engineering, right? So our coverage has been US, and think about it, Balkan countries like Ukraine, Estonia, Poland are really our target market for talent nowadays. So that is the, I think that is the, that is a really a great development. Not mentioning that the labor law are changing also, like Audrey mentioned.
Yeah. So I have a question. It's I feel like everybody who just graduated are definitely feeling it now, since everything is kind of out of the ordinary now with the pandemic. What are the career scene now in Indonesia, and what kind of opportunities are available now? So what do people need to gear themselves towards now?
This is a question for me?
For everyone,
okay,
for everyone.
So short answer, right? So as I said, right, the demand of good talent outstrip the supply, right? So and it is true in my experience is that I am looking for good talent from anywhere, right? Whether it's really a junior, middle manager, top managers, right? But what are the quality that we are looking for, right? So it is not about the experience and certain technology or certain sector or not, right? So because things are moving so fast, this experience may not be relevant, in the near future, right? But we are looking for a very similar intrinsic value, intrinsic skill set in all talents. I mentioned before, yeah, the ability to adapt, the ability to learn fast, Yeah, the ability to actually, to actually be authentic. I think that is very important, true of who you are, right? And think about this nowadays, organization chart may not be relevant anymore, because if you think about, a typical organization chart, it is quite hierarchical, right? And, Pahala can probably say that, oh, I can talk to my branch manager, anytime now. I can just dial a Zoom or a call immediately. Then I know what's going on in a certain market and all that, without going through the typical, traditional organization setup. So the way we work, yeah, talent have to adopt to the new way of working altogether.
Thank you, Buheni, for the kind advice for everybody here. I definitely need that myself as well.
Yeah,
So it's.
I think, yeah, Audrey, if I can add to that, what I see from the
Yes,
young people around me, and if I'm thinking if I were young again, I think there's two things, right? That you really need to do, of course, a lot of things, but two basic things is, one is, I guess the way you present yourself to the world is very different now from when I was young, right? At that time, your suit has to be sharp, and your Hermes tie has to, anyway. Papa Hala still know a little bit about that, but now,
we cannot afford Hermes tie, Daniel, when we were young.
Who wears ties anymore? I'm giving away my ties. Yeah, but I think, for example, and you guys know this, but your LinkedIn has to be, as amazing as possible, right? That's your face to the world. I mean, I look like, so many people ask me requests, and, I'm sure all of us get that, but, it's, I'm going to swipe left or right, depending on, it's, I mean, you guys are lucky people here. I think NYU is a great school. You have, that's at least that's like, okay, NYU is, but that has to be good, but also authentic. Like Ibu Henny said, I see so many things which have so many, things which you say, really? I mean, so that's one thing. Two is, I think, like Henny was saying, like, you gotta continue to learn. I mean, there's so many things out there that, and it's so easy, so much easier now. I mean, I was shocked like 2 months ago. I look at Coursera, right? You guys know Coursera, which is the I think they're the largest online education. I was shocked to learn that you can get a Master of Computer Science from UPenn online. UPenn. So this is like the first course from Ivy League, a full Master of Computer Science from UPenn at, I think, at half the price online, so you can work and do this. I think it takes like 2 or 3 years, whatever. I was like, okay, if it's like something from Podunk University, okay, but a master degree from UPenn online, I mean, so you can just have to be creative, but it has to be something meaningful, right? Not just piling on, certificate and something, but there's so many ways to learn these days and to arm yourself. And Henny probably knows much more, how do you see those things when it appears on the LinkedIn page?
I think, can I just add a little bit of my thoughts, because maybe Daniel is more of an entrepreneur, but I guess the biggest thing that we are probably looking for right now is the ability to problem solve, and be able to have more of this entrepreneurial kind of attitude. We are SOEs, we are banks, highly regulated, and SOE, as always, are being considered as more of a very conservative, and banks are very, very regulated. But what we look for is somebody who are actually able to not only do the process, right? Because on most of the time there is actually a very rigid process for people to actually do it. But we are looking now more for people who can actually do the problem solving. That's number one. Number two, what I mean with being more entrepreneur is that they are not really just doing this thing, but they have new ideas of actually doing new things to improve these things that we are actually doing, whether it is actually technology driven or not. And I think it's very, very different from the days when I was actually a BCG consultant. And when we are actually looking at a McKinsey or BCG consultant today, we want them to be able to actually give us ideas to actually grow, develop new business, new ventures, and things like that in a very much of a corporate world, which is actually very, very different from the days of us actually doing consulting in 2000 or 2000, or during my days when I was actually consultant, which are to develop plans, to do this kind of a process. So I think whatever is actually happening in the startup world has actually making some changes, making an impact also on things that are actually in the corporate world. Corporates will need to also change. Corporate will also need to actually grow. Corporates will need to actually be much more creative in the way that we are actually doing our business to be able to continue to make more money, to be able to grow. And I think that is exactly the kind of people that we are going to look for. And I think, we want people who can actually have ideas, do this thing, having an initiative, not just very smart people, as Daniel has just mentioned just now, who are articulate, very very polished, but not really contributing anything in terms of ideas into how are we going to be able to make an improvement in the organization. So I think that's my take on what is really changing right now compared to the work environment that we faced 20 years ago or 25 years ago.
Right. Thank you so much, Papa Hala, and everybody, all the panelists, for your input and advice. I hope it will be really beneficial for everybody who's attending right now. So we're actually running out of time. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to quickly just share one last slide. So this is our communication, and to connect with us, to talk to other fellow NYU alumni, you can quickly go to this QR code, scan it, and talk through WhatsApp. So thank you everybody for joining this event. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you so much for the panelists. Thank you, Pa Daniel, Bu Henny, and Papa Hala for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stay safe. Bye.
Thank you.
Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.